My beloved child, stop for a moment. Do not scroll away from this message yet, because something is shifting around you that you cannot fully see. There is a movement happening behind the scenes, and it is connected to a place, a location, a destination, a physical place that may soon become far more meaningful to your heart than you ever expected. What you are about to hear may sound like coincidence at first, but listen carefully, because there is a reason these words found you now. Your soulmate is carrying a thought they have not shared with you. They have been considering something quietly, almost secretly, and it involves where you are, where they are, where you once were. Or somewhere neither of you expected to meet. Something about a location is about to surprise you, and the strange part is this: you may already have a connection to the place. Perhaps you have passed through it before, perhaps you have mentioned it casually, perhaps you have seen its name recently without understanding why it caught your attention, perhaps it is a place you never thought would matter. But there are moments when heaven allows an ordinary location to become the stage for an extraordinary encounter. A street can become a memory, a city can become a turning point, an airport can become a doorway, a cafe can become the place where two timelines suddenly cross. A family gathering can become the moment someone finally says what they have been afraid to say, and sometimes, my beloved child, a location is not merely a place, it is a signal that two paths are beginning to move toward one another. You have spent enough time wondering when will they reach out, when will they make a decision, when will the distance disappear? When will the silence finally break? But heaven is showing you something different. Instead of asking only when, pay attention to where, because the surprise your soulmate is preparing may not begin with a message, it may begin with movement. They may be preparing to travel, they may be planning to visit somewhere. They may have a reason to enter a place connected to you. They may suddenly find themselves closer to you than they have been in a long time, and they may not even tell you beforehand. That is why the energy around this feels so unusual. There is something spontaneous about it, something almost impossible to predict. Your soulmate may have been thinking about you while making plans that appear completely unrelated. They may be looking at a map. They may be checking a route. They may be discussing a trip. They may be considering a change in residence, work, study, family plans, or travel. And underneath that practical decision is another thought they have not confessed. What if I went there? What if I returned? What if I visited? What if I happened to be nearby? What if I finally allowed myself to see what happens when our paths cross again? That thought has been growing, and it is closer to becoming an action than you realize. My beloved child, you have been interpreting distance as evidence that the connection is fading, but distance does not always mean disappearance. Sometimes distance is preparation. Sometimes two people need to move through completely separate chapters before circumstances place them in the same room again. And sometimes one person begins moving physically before the other person even knows anything has changed. That may be what is happening now. You may wake up one day and discover that your soulmate has entered an environment connected to your life, not necessarily because they planned a dramatic reunion, not necessarily because they know exactly what they are going to say. they may simply be there. And that is what makes this surprise so powerful. You could encounter them when you are not emotionally prepared. You could hear their name in an unexpected conversation. You could discover that someone has recently moved near you. You could learn that a person you thought was far away is suddenly considering a location much closer to your world. You could receive an invitation that seems ordinary but carries an extraordinary consequence. And you may wonder afterward, how did this happen? The answer may be simpler than you think. Your paths have been rearranging, not through force, through circumstances. One decision affects another. One invitation creates another opportunity. One trip changes another schedule. One family member makes one suggestion. One work opportunity appears. One unexpected event moves someone from one city to another, and suddenly, the geography between two hearts changes. That is why I want you to listen beyond the surface of this message. The surprise is not necessarily that your soulmate will suddenly appear at your door. The deeper surprise is that circumstances may be creating proximity without either of you having complete control over it. There is movement, there is redirection, there is a change of coordinates, and your soulmate may already be aware of it. They may know something you do not. Perhaps they know they will soon be near you. Perhaps they have already decided to visit. Perhaps they have been keeping the plan quiet because they do not want to create expectations. Or perhaps they are waiting to see whether the opportunity becomes real before saying anything. That uncertainty is important, because your soulmate may not want to promise something they cannot guarantee. They have learned from the past. They know how easily expectations can become disappointment. They know what it feels like to say too much too soon. So instead of announcing everything, they may be moving quietly, watching, planning, waiting, and hoping that when the moment comes, they will have the courage to do what they have been unable to do before, approach you. There is something about physical proximity that can awaken emotions people have successfully hidden through distance. It is easy to think about someone when they are far away. It is easy to miss them from another city. It is easy to remember their voice. When you cannot hear it, but standing near someone changes everything. The eyes remember, the body remembers, the heart recognizes what the mind tried to organize, and your soulmate may be discovering that distance allowed them to pretend they were more detached than they actually were. They could tell themselves they were moving on, they could bury memories, they could become busy, they could fill their schedule, they could convince themselves that the connection belonged to another chapter. But if they suddenly find themselves in a location connected to you, those old emotions may rise again, and this time, they may not be able to run from them. That is why the location matters. It may become a mirror. A place that forces your soulmate to confront what they still feel. And there is another possibility I need you to consider. The location may not be where you live now. It may be somewhere you once visited together, a place connected to a memory, a neighborhood, a particular road, a restaurant, a park, a building, a station, a beach, a city, a family home, somewhere that carries emotional meaning even if neither of you talks about it anymore. Your soulmate may return there. And when they do, something may happen that they did not expect. they may remember you differently, not as an old story, not as someone from the past, but as someone they still have unfinished emotions toward. There are places that preserve emotional energy in a person's memory. You can return years later and suddenly remember exactly how you felt, the sound of a particular street, the light at a certain time of day, the smell of a familiar place, a song playing nearby. A doorway, a seat, a view, and suddenly, a memory you thought was buried becomes vivid. Your soulmate may be approaching such a moment, but the location could also be entirely new. That is what makes this revelation unpredictable. You may meet somewhere neither of you considers romantic, somewhere practical, somewhere connected to work, somewhere related to family, somewhere you go because someone asks you to, somewhere you almost decide not to visit, and that last detail matters, because sometimes the most important encounters are hidden behind decisions that seem insignificant. You almost stayed home, you almost canceled, you almost took another route, you almost ignored the invitation. You almost postponed the trip, you almost said no, and then something inside you says, go. You do not know why, you simply go, and there they are, not necessarily standing dramatically in front of you. Perhaps you notice them across the room, perhaps you hear their voice before seeing their face. Perhaps someone introduces you without realizing the history between you. Perhaps your eyes meet for 1 second, and in that second, everything you thought you had resolved becomes alive again. My beloved child, do not be afraid of such a moment. You have grown. You are not the same person who experienced the pain before. You have learned. You have survived uncertainty. You have discovered that your worth does not depend on whether someone chooses you. You have learned how to stand without begging. You have learned how to love without abandoning yourself. So if your soulmate appears unexpectedly, you do not need to perform. You do not need to prove anything. You do not need to rehearse the perfect sentence. You simply need to be present, because the surprise may not be what they say. It may be what their presence reveals. Perhaps they look at you differently. Perhaps they seem nervous. Perhaps they have difficulty maintaining eye contact. Perhaps they suddenly become unusually quiet. Perhaps they ask questions they could have asked anyone else. Are you still here? How have you been? Do you come here often? Are you staying long? Simple words, but sometimes simple words carry hidden questions. Is there still a place for me in your life? Would you let me come closer? Have I missed my chance? Do you still remember me? Your soulmate may not have the courage to ask those questions directly, so they may ask about the location instead. They may ask where you are going, how long you will be there, whether you plan to stay, when you will return, and you may not realize what they are really trying to discover. They may be measuring distance, not geographical distance, emotional distance. They want to know how far away you are from them now. They want to know whether the door is completely closed, and this is where your story becomes more mysterious. Because there is a possibility that the location your soulmate is considering has been appearing around you already. You may have heard its name more than once. Someone may have mentioned it. You may have seen it online. you may have received a message connected to it. You may have noticed a business, street, city, building, event, or destination repeatedly. You dismissed it because it seemed random, but sometimes repetition gets our attention before understanding arrives. I am not telling you to turn every coincidence into a prophecy. No, do not live in fear of missing a sign. Do not obsess over every number, name, or location. That is not what this message is asking of you. Instead, remain aware. There is a difference between obsession and awareness. Obsession makes you chase. Awareness allows you to notice. If a genuine opportunity appears, you will recognize it without forcing it. If an invitation arrives, you can consider it. If a trip becomes possible, you can decide wisely. If someone mentions a place connected to your soulmate, you do not have to panic. Simply pay attention, because heaven does not require you to become frantic in order to receive what is meant for you. What is meant for you will not demand that you destroy your peace to find it. And yet, there is something else. Your soulmate may be planning a move. Not just a visit, a move. A change of location that could bring their life much closer to yours. This may be connected to career, family, education, a new opportunity, a personal reset, or something that happened in their life that forced them to reconsider where they belong. And perhaps they have not told you because telling you would make the decision emotionally complicated. Imagine knowing that moving closer to someone could reopen feelings you have tried to control. Would you announce it immediately? Maybe not. You might wait. You might observe. You might ask mutual connections subtle questions. You might check whether they are still in the same place. You might quietly gather information. And that is where another person may become involved. Someone may know about your soulmate's plans before you do. Someone may accidentally reveal something, a casual conversation, a passing remark, a sentence that makes you pause. They might be coming here soon. Or, they're thinking about moving. Or perhaps, they were asking about that place. You may hear it and suddenly feel something inside you shift, because you will realize the location was not random, it was connected to them, and perhaps your soulmate has been closer to making this move than anyone realized. There is also a hidden emotional reason behind it. They may be tired of living in an environment filled with reminders of the past. They may want a fresh beginning. But strangely, the fresh beginning may bring them closer to the person they never truly finished. Grieving, that is the paradox. They may be trying to escape the old version of themselves, only to find themselves walking toward you. And perhaps that is why the timing feels so unusual. Because your soulmate is not simply moving geographically, they are moving emotionally. They are becoming more willing to confront what happened, more willing to admit what they feel, more willing to consider possibilities they once rejected. And there is one thought that keeps returning to them. What if I see them again? They may imagine the meeting. They may imagine your reaction. They may wonder whether you would be angry, whether you would ignore them, whether you would smile, whether you would ask questions, whether you would walk away. They may even fear that you have changed so much that they no longer recognize the place they once held in your heart. That fear may be stronger than you realize. because while you have been wondering whether they still care, they may be wondering whether you still have room for them. Two people, two questions, two kinds of silence, and one location that may soon bring those questions into the same physical space. But my beloved child, I need you to prepare for something you may not expect. The surprise connected to location may involve someone else bringing your soulmate toward you, not your soulmate alone. Someone may invite them, someone may organize something, someone may create the circumstances without understanding what they are triggering, a family member, a friend, a colleague. A mutual connection. Someone may say, "You should come with us." And your soulmate may hesitate, they may almost say no, but then something changes, they decide to go, and that decision could become the beginning of the encounter. You may not know any of this yet, you may continue your normal routine, you may wake up tomorrow thinking nothing has changed, but somewhere else, another person may be making a decision that will eventually intersect with your life. That is the mystery of timing. You cannot see the entire chain, you only see your side of the road, but another road is moving toward yours, and somewhere along that road is a place that may soon carry a memory neither of you will ever forget. So if something unusual happens around travel, movement, invitations, neighborhoods, cities, work locations, family events, or unexpected meetings, do not immediately dismiss it. You do not need to assume, you do not need to force, simply remain present, because the next part of this story is not about whether your soulmate still has feelings. The deeper question is what they are planning to do with those feelings once distance is no longer protecting them, and there is something they have already decided, a decision they have not announced, a decision connected to a specific place. They have been looking at it, thinking about it, imagining themselves there, and what makes this so astonishing is that they are not only wondering whether you might be there. They already know something about your connection to that location, they know something you do not know they know, and when you discover how they learned it, you may finally understand why their next move has been kept so quiet, because the location they are considering is connected to a memory you thought only you remembered, and there is someone who has recently told your soulmate what happened there. What they revealed has changed your soulmate's plans completely, and my beloved child, when you hear what that person told them about that place, you will understand why the surprise is much closer than you think.